Alrighty, so for this assignment we're going to do is UV the character so that we can prepare it for the actual sculpting and texturing that we are going to complete. I really love this guy's hair. I think this just looks so great. Okay, anyway. Generally speaking, really what we got to concern ourselves with, it's pretty intuitive at this point. There's a point where this was much more difficult. The main thing we want to do is we really are just looking to where we want to put the seams. We want to try and put seams where they make sense and where they visually aren't as visible. Okay, so for instance, I'm going to go ahead and do his pants first because I think that makes the most sense. And if you were to look at pants, you'll know that you generally have seams right on the side here, right? You usually have seams on the inside. And then you will have a seam here as well on both the front and the back. And if you don't believe me, look at your pants. It depends on what kind of pants they are. But if you look at jeans, that's typically the way they are. They'll actually usually be offset sometimes, the ones. But I've seen pants where they'll have seams that like go across this way. It depends on what your pants are. So if you have different style pants, you should put those seams in the way that makes sense. So I'm going to start off with just this, and just to make things easier, I'm going to hit Shift I. So I'm not looking at the other stuff. And what we're going to do is have this selected, and I am going to go ahead and just, I'm going to turn all of this stuff off over here because I don't need that. And I'm going to do panels, and we're going to do, let's see, layouts, and we're going to do 2 panes side by side. Perspective on this side, and then over here, I'm going to go to panels, panel, and we're going to go UV editor. And then I'm going to need the tools. So I'm going to do tools. I'm going to show UV toolkit. See, I wish I could snap it in there. It's like not, whenever see, it shows that it's highlighting, but it doesn't actually go in the spot it's supposed to, which is frustrating to me. All right, let me see something. Tools. I don't see it there. Options. Okay. Well, we'll just put it to the side. It's kind of annoying, but I wanted to snap it into here. Okay, so we have this. Now what you're going to see is because we did quad draw, generally speaking, almost every face is going to have a border edge. So that's why it's mostly a square. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and do a camera-based UV. You're going to see that we have these options for selecting, but if you look at the tools here, they're actually generally in the order in which you would use them. So kind of start at the top and work your way down. We're going to start with create. And I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to do camera based. Click on that. And it's just going to literally just make sure you're kind of looking at it flat from the front. All right. So now what I'm going to do is put the seams in. So I'm going to go to edges. And I'm going to double click this edge, hold shift, double click, right? Because that's right in the midline. And I'll do it on this. Apparently, let's do symmetry. So I have to do less. Okay, good. And I'm just going to make sure it goes all the way from the top and around. You might find if you have a little spot in here that it might not come across. Just make sure it goes all the way through. And I'm going to go to cut, and we will cut. Okay. And now if I click off, you will see that white line. So now there's only a seam there. And if we were to grab this, you will see that it says it's on show. Oh, it's not going to be cut because we are still attached on the inside of the leg. So we need to also put a seam here. So again, I'm going to use the midline, which is not that one, which is this one, right? And just make sure it goes up and around the crotch, and back. And again, we're going to hit cut. And now if I right click, go to UV show, in case you didn't see that. There we go. You'll see I have a front and a back panel, okay, which is pretty close. But normally I could leave it this way because it would be fine, but I'm just going to go ahead and put the seam in that you would also see. So I'm just going to double click on this one and that one all the way around. And I'm just going to also cut that. And now you will see that I have them in separate sections. It's not separating because I have Object X. If I turn that off, you can see I can grab them individually like so. And so now we have our pieces. So for the most part, that works pretty well. So what we're going to do is just, I'm going to grab all of them, and then we're just going to go to the unfold section and hit unfold. And voila, we now have our pieces of our cloth. Just imagine, as a reminder, hopefully you've done this before, what we're trying to do is, if you look at your pants, any kind of clothing, it started out as a flat textile, and then they sew the edges together, and that's why you can see those seams on your clothing. We're basically undoing the seams, okay? So that's what we're doing here. With clothing, this is particularly a little bit easier because even if you see these seams, those seams are supposed to be there, so it actually works. So I'm not going to worry about the layout of it right now. Just leave it floating around. Doesn't really matter. I mean, nothing selected. Hit Shift I to bring everything back. Let's go ahead and just do the shoes. I'm going to hit Shift I just again to make things a little bit easier. And I'm going to go ahead and let's do a UV from above. So I'm just going to go over here, go to camera based. Okay. And then let's go ahead and do symmetry just so I don't have to do it twice. And we are going to cut this. So I'm going to put this where I think roughly the sole of the shoe is, right? So that's where the sole is. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it there. So we will cut. And then I can go to, let's do it this way. I can grab this. It's easier to grab it here than trying to grab it there. I'm just going to pull the sole off. And that didn't quite. Oh, so if you look, the symmetry is not quite on. You can see it missed these two here. So that's why it was moving the whole bit there. So I'm going to grab those two specifically and cut them. And then we'll go back to shell. I can't grab shell in here, you can see. So we'll go back to object mode. I'm going to go over here, go UV shell, and then I can select it here, and then I can pull it up. And apparently, okay, so why is that weird? Oops, sorry. Eek. Something else not cut. I think it's just this must be slightly off. So I wonder if we did it this way. If this worked, and it keeps getting stuck. We'll come back to it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just not grabbing certain parts, which is weird because if you look, you can see it's part of it. So anyway, so again, we want to try to follow the same general rules that we have with finding the seam. So if you look at your shoes and there's obvious seams, you can do those. But if you want to just like kind of generically do it, this is what I do because I'm kind of lazy. Generally, you'll see like a piece that goes over this way. And then you'll see like you have your tongue of your shoe going this way. So I guess I'm just going to go ahead and use that as my guide. So I'm going to double click on this, which just goes right around. That's actually too high or too low. Sorry. So that's more like where the tongue of it is, I think. Kind of hard. I didn't do it exactly following that seam. So I probably should have done a little bit of a better job there. I want to do it there. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and do it there. So I'll just grab those. I'm just going to hit cut again. All right, so you can see there's a seam there. And then I'm just going to do the same thing here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hold shift, double click, because I don't want to go all the way around. Let me see. I went to that one. So here, double click. Okay, and then we'll also cut those. And I think that's everything we need. So now what I'm going to do is just go to UV shell, grab all of them. We're going to hit unfold. I'm going to turn this off for a second. And then that way I can just pull these off. And you can see we have all of the pieces. This one's still stuck together. So we'll look at that in a second. And voila. Now you'll notice that this one is still attached as one large piece, which usually it's not. So this would actually also be separate. So I'm just going to go ahead and just put them here. Now, if you're trying to do less seams, what I would do is do one for the sole, and then I do one going up the back. That's another way of doing it. But if I'm trying to follow the seams of where the shoe is, I would just do this. So I would do cut, and then we would have that separate. Now I'm going to look over at this one. You can see that's still connected. So I'm just going to look over here, and I'm going to go, and you can see right there. See how it's not white? So that means that edge is not cut. So I'm just going to specifically cut that. And now when I grab, I can pull these separate. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is actually just redo this in the other method where if you're, let's say you have bare feet or something, or you're just trying to remove the number of seams, just going to do that real quick. So I'm just going to go ahead, do camera based again. This is how I would do it the other way. So I'd grab this. I'm just going to do it twice because this is easier because it's messing up the other stuff. I'll cut those. So I'll cut the soles off, right? I'll grab both these feet here. Let's go ahead and unfold those. Okay, so I got the soles of the feet. And then for the back, I would just go down the center line from here to there, from here to there, hit cut. And then when we grab them and we unfold them, you'll see now we have two pieces, right? And so there's pretty minimal seams. So that should work. I'm just going to grab both, make sure they're both unfolded. Okay, good. All right, so we'll call that good for the shoes because I didn't really have very good seams anyway on these. So I'm just going to try to minimize the number of seams instead. So I have nothing selected, hit shift I. Okay, so we've done the shoes, we've done that. There's all of these guys here. So I'm just going to select all of them. I'm going to click and drag across. I'm going to hold control, click, 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 click. Okay, so now I just have those things selected. And let's just try doing automatic and see what that gives us. And it gives us this. That was automatic. Okay. I guess that's those are probably fine the way they are, because they are just, that doesn't seem quite right. Let me see something real quick. I'm gonna grab one and let's try unfolding it. Yeah, so it didn't actually cut it quite the way I would have liked. So I'm gonna try a little bit of a trick here, because if you recall, these were all made from the same piece. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on one, I'm gonna Shift I, and I'll hit F to frame because it's kind of hard. And I'm just gonna do this not through automatic because it didn't give me very good results. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut these. I'm gonna cut it here and here and here and here. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and I'm gonna cut that. Then, oops, gotta go this way. Then we'll grab this one, move that over. I'm gonna go ahead and unfold that. Okay, so that makes the inside, that's fine. I'm gonna grab this one, I'm gonna hit unfold. But you're gonna see it's gonna kind of struggle on these parts here, so it's not super obvious, but if I put this on, I was gonna talk about this later, where the blue is means it has more than needed, and red means it has less than needed. And white is roughly where it should be. So see, this one's perfectly good because it's straight, so it's real easy for it to lay out. But there's a little bit of pinching going on because of these things. So I could do this a couple ways. I could either do it here or I could do it here. But I'm just going to go ahead and do it here. I'm going to grab this one, which is basically this corner, this corner. We'll do it down here as well. Let me turn this back off. Oops. And I'm going to grab here and here. It's the same basic idea. We'll hit cut. Okay, then I'm just watch. I'm going to unfold again. And now if I go ahead and show that, you'll see that it's still a little bit red, but it could be a lot worse. That'll be, at least these tops are better. Okay, so we've now cut one. This one looks okay, right? I'm okay with the way this one looks. So I'm gonna hit Shift I, bring everything back. Now what I wanna do is I just wanna transfer this guy to the other ones because I don't really wanna do it to every one of them. So I'm gonna do is have this one selected. I'm gonna Shift click on this one. So first the good one, then the bad one. Let's turn this back off. So not, okay, so first the good one, then bad one. Just as a reminder, the bad one looks like this, okay? This is the good one. So this one to this one. Then you're gonna go to mesh. We're gonna go transfer attributes. And then what we wanna do is, we're not doing vertex position or vertex normals. I wanna transfer the UV. I don't really care about the color set. You can leave that alone. I wanna use not world space, because if we're looking at world, this is clearly in a different spot. So that's not gonna work very well. So we're gonna use local instead. Local or component should work. Let's do component. That should probably actually work better. And the rest of this should be fine. Then I'll hit apply. And what you're going to see is that now this thing has the same UVs as this one. And so we're just going to go ahead and do that to the rest of them. I think I can multi-select this. I do not remember. Let's try that. And then we'll hit apply. And let's see if that worked. It did not. Okay, so it looks like I got to do each one. So I'm just going to do that and hit G and close out of that. So we'll just go from here to here and hit G. Thought I could do more than one, but I guess I can't. G. And so I'm just clicking on the original one, then the one I want to do, and hit G. This one, and then this one, G. And then that one, and this one. Oh, that one's already good. And that one's already good. Okay, so now they all have the same UVs that this one does. And let me just show you something real quick. What you're going to notice is they have this transfer attribute. So it's very important before you rig and stuff that you actually delete the history, because now it's sort of tied to this, and it'll create some issues. Like when you go to when it goes to move, the UVs will actually wiggle waggle, believe it or not, which is kind of weird. So you just want to make sure that you don't have that. So I'm just going to do it now, just so that, I mean, we're going to delete the history again anyway, but just for fun's sake, we'll delete all by type history again, just so that they don't have that extra history. All right, so we have that. That looks good. I'm going to grab the belt here. And let's just go ahead. I'm just going to, again, I just like to use the camera base. It just makes the most sense, just flatly like that. And then we're just going to double click on the inside edge here, because that'll just go all the way around. We're going to go ahead and, we're going to do the inside edges. Actually, we could just do the one, probably get away with it. We'll hit cut. And then I'm going to need to put one seam somewhere. I didn't do a belt buckle. Whoops. We'll put the seam right here because this is where the belt buckle is eventually going to go. So it'll be over top of it. So I'm just going to double click that edge loop and we'll hit cut. And now what I did is I have the one side and then all the way around. So now watch, when we go to grab this, UV shell, grab this and I unfold, you're going to see it's going to unfold as one big long piece, right? So this is the front, that's the top, right? This is the underneath, or sorry, that one's the top. This is the bottom, apparently. Top, and then this is the back side. Theoretically, really, we don't need that much of the back side. In fact, actually, you could I probably should just delete that because you're never going to see it anyway. I'm going to leave it on for now, but you would never see it. You know, like it'd be kind of weird to see the inside of that, but I'm just going to leave it for now so I'm not like dealing with that. This shirt's going to be the easiest thing we do. It's going to look at the shirt, make sure I'm in object mode, go to camera based, right? And if you look at shirts, you will see there'll be a seam here. Come on. And I'm going to do it on this side too. Just wasn't a lot of luck with using symmetry, so I'm just going to do it manually. Here and here. We'll just grab all those, hit cut, go to Dirty Dog. Here we go. Go to shell, and I can grab one. There we go. And I got the front. Usually, if you look at this style shirt, there's usually just the two sides. But this is actually where the arm, if this did have arm sleeves, obviously there'd be a seam here, and there'd be a sleeve coming down. Obviously a seam where the end of the shirt is, and then usually you will see it, actually you see it underneath the arm right here, or you put the seam behind the arm. It kind of depends on the shirt, different shirts. I've seen some where they actually have it on the front and the back, because they use it like a stylistic choice. It's kind of up to you. So we're going to select both of these guys and just unfold, bam. Okay, so now the shirt's done. Next to do is the body. Now the body's a little bit different here, because when you look at the body, we don't have seams on our body. So really what I'm going to have to try and do is try to do as few seams as possible in order for, I want to do as few seams as possible and have them less visible. So I could do things, I'm going to select this and just hit Shift I, so I only have this part, just to make things a little bit easier. So we could do this a couple of different ways. We could just be like, okay, let's just do it like it's a shirt. Now we'll put a seam down the side, you know, one here, one around the neck, around the shoulder, down where the hand is, okay? That's one way of doing it, but we're going to end up with a ton of seams. So instead, I'm going to do it like this is a nude, because this is a nude. So if you have like a creature or something and you need to not show the seams, you're going to do it more pelt-like. So what I mean by that is that if you ever seen like a bearskin rug, that's what we're shooting for, okay? So that being said, you should mostly always see the character's front, right? The least likely is the back. So I'm going to use the back as my main seam. So first I'm going to do is the same things before. Just going to do camera based from the front. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go to edges. I'm going to go from here and we'll go up to about here. Okay. So what I want you to do is, actually let's go. Okay. So I'm going to go from the base. We're going to go from there. And then what I'm actually going to do is go all the way up. You want to go up to basically where the top of see how like right here you can see that try, that pole. It's not a try, but it's a 3-star. That's where this becomes the back panel, becomes the top panel. So see, that's where that is. Yours might be like slightly offset, where it's farther down here or up there, but think about where the top, where the back becomes the top. I want you to put the seam up to that point, okay? Then what I'm going to do is go across like this. And you want to go across to the point where the top panel becomes the side panel. So once again, for me, mine's right where this pole is. But basically go over until it becomes the difference between the top and the side panel. So I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go boom, 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 boom. And again, from where it becomes the side panel to the front panel and the top panel. So like that. What it's going to look like is kind of like a goal post. See how like you can see it's like a field goal post. Okay, like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to hit cut. All right. What I want to do is just show you this real quick. Actually, it's not going to work because, well, we'll leave that. I'll show you after. No, I'll show you now. I'm going to have this selected. I'll hit unfold. The triangulation of the selected mesh is non-manifold geometry. I'm going to ignore that. So it says I have non-manifolds. I need to fix that real quick. So with this selected, and this might happen to you, we're going to do mesh. We're going to do cleanup, hit the option box. And instead of having it cleaned up manually, I'm going to have it do selecting mesh and polygons. Basically, what this is going to do is going to highlight any errors there might be. So fixed by pixelation, I'm going to say any faces more than 4 sides, which means anything that's an n-gon is going to make it to a try. Faces with holes. And the main thing is to select the lamina non-manifold. Remember, non-manifold was why it wasn't letting me do it before. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up, and that's going to highlight where it is. And it's highlighting the whole body. That's weird. Let's hit 3. Don't see a problem. Let's do this real quick. I'm going to do mesh display conform, mesh display set to face, mesh display soften edge. All right, let's try that again. Mesh, where are you? Cleanup, option box, let's hit cleanup. That's weird. I don't know why grid snapping's on. All right. Okay, let's try having it clean it up manually. I'm not really sure what it's doing. I've never had it do that before. So we'll do cleaning up, and we'll apply. Are there faces inside somewhere? That's weird. Clean dimension polygons. Clean up. I don't see any issues. Okay. Nothing there. Nothing there. Okay. Let's try this again. Unfold. I should have saved it before because it looks like, okay. So he's a big circle. So if you look, you can kind of see, it doesn't make as much sense. I'm just going to cut the head. Don't do this real quick. Don't do this. I'm just going to do it for you so you can see. I'm just going to cut this head off real quick. So what that's going to do is unfold. You'll see basically it creates, imagine this was a box, right? So this would be the top panel of the box. Here's the side panel. Well, this is side panel, back, and the front panel. So that was the idea. Oh, there's something going on right here, apparently. Let's see if we just merge those together. Weird. I'm going to delete this real quick, and then we'll just fill that hole. Mesh, fill hole. And then let's just do mesh display, conform, set the face, soften edge. Okay. So that's the idea, is that it would create something like that. Okay. I'm going to go here to here, and I'm just going to resew those, stitch together. Okay. So just imagine, okay, so, why? Oh, because okay. So, yeah, so I got this. As you can see, it's going down from the top. Now what I need to do are the arms. So same thing as the back. I want the, it's the back of the arms is the least likely to be seen. So basically where the triceps are. So what I'm going to do is just kind of follow that line and just work my way up. So I'm going to start, let's say here. I'm going to hold shift, double click till I get basically to this line. And you can see it sort of turns into multiple pieces. So I got to follow a path till I get to where I need. So I got to think where I want that seam to be. So I'm just going to go like this, like that. And then we will, let me see, I went over and down and like this. So basically I'm going to get to that, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut that one to start with. But I had to follow a path up until it wasn't able to go, and then I just manually kind of followed it along. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that. So it's going to go from here up and over. And then we need to do the hand. So the hand, I should just be able to double click. Okay, so I'm going to double click here. So it gets around there. And I want basically the midline. It looks like I kind of have one on either side. So what I'm going to do is actually go to the bottom one. Because once again, I'll probably see the top of the hand more than the bottom of the hand. And then we're going to go like this. And that will, I'm going to double click the middle line. So it's, if you ever look at a glove, that's where the seam is. It's on that part. I could go inwards and do like inside here if I wanted to, so it'd make it even less. But I think I'll just leave it on the midline. I think for the most part, that won't be too big of a deal. Oh, looks like my fingertips have issues too. I'm going to fix this real quick, and then I'll finish what we're doing here. Alrighty, so I fixed the finger. I had to actually flip it and all that stuff. But I went up, basically, went through, just like I showed you. I went there, I just cut. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of follow that same path. And I need to go up or down. I'll just go down, and then I'm just going to double click, hold shift, double click until it gets around here. And then, okay, so I need this to go up to roughly where the wrist would be. So let's go there. I'm going to go ahead, and I put symmetry on too, just because I'm trying to just cut it for now. Hopefully that makes everything work okay. And now we need to make a decision where we want the hand to be. So I think what I'm going to do is, Let's see what happens here. So let's just, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to Control S to save what we have. Let's go to UV shell. Let's see what it looks like when we unfold it, and let's see what happens. Okay, so that looks acceptable. Okay, so some things that I would change and what have you. So what you'll see now is that it's more or less pelted. So see how it's all one piece, right? We only have the seams basically going down the back and around here. Let me go into a different mode. Going down the head around here, right? And then cutting down and over across the arms. If I had legs, I would just go down and across the legs as well. So it would all be one large, generally piece, okay? The other thing I would do too is this. So if you look, see how the thumbs are apart? These are actually, if I click on them, see how the edges, when I click on one edge, it selects the other one because they're part of the same. I would actually go through and I would do this, maybe not this one, and I would go ahead and stitch together. And then you actually have one less seam also on the thumb. So the inside of the thumb actually here would not have a seam. It would start at the tip of the thumb, not all the way through. Okay, so you can see that's how you would do something if you want to have it have as few seams as possible. The problem with this though is, let me show you this now, is that we can look at this. Right now we're looking at the wireframe view. If you click on this, it's going to show blue, okay? And a handy dandy thing that we'll also do is that if you take this, I'm just going to flip it real quick. Come on, there you go. Grab you, and which one is it? Is it aligned? Where's the one that flips it? Most other transform, duh. If I were to flip this, see how it's red? Red means that the UVs are upside down. So when you have this mode on, it'll actually show you what's up and what's down, which can be kind of handy. So I'm going to go ahead and just flip that back. But that's what that one's for. This one shows stretching. So what this is going to do is it's going to show you where you have a lot of stretching and where there's not, and where there's squishing. So right here in between the fingers, these should be more spread. So I'm getting quite a bit there. Blue means it has more than it needs, and white's fine. This is actually not too bad. So blue is, like you can see here, is a little bit much. Around the neck is more than it ought to be. You're going to see the ears have some as well. So it actually isn't stretched as bad as I thought it would be, to be honest. I thought this would be a horrible example, or example of how horrible it could be, but it's actually not too bad. Another way of testing whether your quads are irregular when you're previewing this is to click on this, and what that's going to do is I'm going to turn this off, and we'll turn that one off. We'll just go here. And now I can actually see it puts this checker pattern. You've probably seen this in video games if the textures are missing. They use this pattern here. And it will allow you to see if these checkers, if they are stretched or skewed or bent, it'll give me an idea of if it'll show me that, or areas that have too much. Like if it's a really big square here and then little tiny squares here, then I'll know that it's not as good. So like right here, you can see they're not as good as maybe the front of the body because it's covering more space. But you can also see like these are a little bit stretched this way, right? So I have some texture stretching going on there. Now, a lot of this would be avoidable. I can have less, and look at his face, right? These are much larger than what you see down here, which means that this is using up less texture space because these checkers are larger than these ones. Most of the rest of it is relatively even, but I feel like the head is too large, which means it's not getting enough space. And if you actually look at it from a proportionate standpoint, you can kind of see, turn that off too. You can kind of see that this is taking up too little space in comparison to what it is here, right? See how big that is? See how big it is here? So I can see that that clearly has issues. If I get in here, you can kind of see how it's red there, red on the chin and on the ears. So that's one of those things you have to balance. I can have fewer seams, but that also means I'm going to end up having more more stretching and skewing and stuff like that. So we need to fix that as well. So what I could do is just further cut this up in order to have more control over it, but I'll end up with seams wherever I put those. So in my case, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna cut the head off, because the head, most of the time you want everything to take up generally the amount of texture space that the 3D model takes. The 2D counterpart of the UV should take up relatively the same amount of space. But except for the head, because the head is in every shot. Like the head is the main thing you always look at. So I'm actually going to cut the head off. Now, if you have your guy and you're wearing a shirt or something like that, then you probably already have a line here, and you can just use that. If you have something more like mine, where, or even if it's lower, like let's say I had like a really like tank top that went real low, I would put the seam down below that tank top so you wouldn't see it. In my case, I do have a tank top. So I'm going to try and go, I guess, roughly to here. I might have to go a little bit higher, but if I can get it underneath this, that would be preferred. So I'm just going to go back to this. And I think what I'm going to do is do it here. I'm going to go here to here like that. I'm going to cut the head off at this point. But it might even be worth it to put it like up here. So it's like real early so you don't see it, you know, like it's hidden behind like the jawline and the underneath the chin and stuff. That wouldn't be bad as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to cut that. We don't need transform. That's not super useful. Cut. And now what I can do is I can grab this one, and if I hit unfold, and I'm just going to move it over, and now we can take this one and hit unfold. That'll have a little bit more space as well. But what you'll see is if I go here, it is still red in some areas. This is a little less blue. But see the ears have a little bit more room. And if I don't do that, if instead I do this, I can now have the ability to take these UVs and just superficially scale it up so that there's actually more texture space in this area in comparison to down here. Okay, so that's another thing that you might want to do. You could also put other seams in. So sometimes, depending on the hands, I would just cut these straight across and have two separate. So I would cut down the thumb here and then cut the hands across and then just have the hands as separate pieces too, and just grin and bear it and have a seam right where the wrist is. So you could either do it the way we've been doing it, where you just grab around like that and then cut, or and then go this way. You can also use this tool. It's kind of fun. If you go to this cut tool, you can just click and drag, and it will cut. You cut across the seam, and now there's a spot there, and then I would just cut right through here. And now you can see I have these as separate pieces, and then I could use it like that, right? But I'll have an extra seam now right where that wrist is. So it's kind of the balance of what you think is going to make the most sense for you. And then I might be like, oh, I wish this thing was over here. So to do that, I'm just going to cut this, right? I can also cut it this way, just to show you the full breadth of tools here. Select, oops, I'm still on that cut tool. Was it W? I'm going to select this, and then, oh yeah, I already showed you that cut. Yeah, I guess we'll just do that. And then we would just grab the edge here. You can see it matches there, so I'll just grab these two. It would match those two there. And then we would just hit stitch together. If you do so, it will snap these to this, watch. But it won't move the thing, so it'll actually stretch it out. If you hit stitch, it actually moves it over and attaches it. So just be aware. Most of the time, probably stitch is what you're going to want to use. But in my case, I think I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as one piece, because I didn't feel like that was really giving us that much of a disadvantage as far as the texturing was concerned. So we're going to leave that like that. Okay, so let's, I think that's good, right? I think that's all I really needed to do. Oh, I want to cover one other thing. So let's say your character's got like giant ears or something. You would just cut those out. So I would just go in here, you know, go around and cut the ears off like so. Did I get all the way around? Missed this one right here. Oops, and that guy's going there. No, thank you. Right there. And I would just cut that, pull the ear off, and then unfold both pieces again. So if you have like rabbit ears or something coming off, just do that, all right? Or if you have a long nose, like let's say it's an elephant or something, or a tapir, so I say it, something like that, something with a longer nose or a beak or something, I would also cut it there, okay? I would avoid putting any seams down the forward part of the face, though. All right, so let's just see. I think that was most everything that I had. There's obviously these, but I'm not really worried. I think you can figure those out. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the next one, we have all these pieces here, right? But you can see they're all over the place, all different scales. I'm going to do another video, and we will we'll just sort it all out in that one.